Hello everybody, welcome to this week's edition. We're talking about digital strategy today, something slightly different to some of the other topics. It's a bit of a buzzword at the moment, digital transformation. We're going to do a slight different take on that, and we're going to call it digital strategy, and more specifically how you start your own digital strategy. So I'm really pleased today to be joined by special guest Matt Pybus. He's had a lot of experience in helping develop digital strategies, digital programs, transformation programs in a variety of companies, which I'm sure he can go into in a lot more detail shortly. So first off, Matt, welcome. Thanks for joining.
Thank you very much. Thanks for inviting me.
Good. So today's session is just going to be a relaxed talk about how people can develop their own digital strategies based on experience that you and I have been involved in, or more specifically yourself, and just giving people some tips and helps on how to do it, rather than going and buying some fancy technology and digital products, putting them in their business and expecting them to work and work miracles. There's a bit more of a science stuff behind it as to how we start that strategy. So first off, if you want to start off, tell me a little bit about yourself and how you ended up getting involved in strategy programs.
Yeah, yes, it's an interesting one because I'm not a digital expert per se. I'm somebody who's been working in operations and projects and has seen the value that digital transformation or digital enhancement has brought along to the project. So I'll wind back and give you a little bit of a history, if you like. Going to university, I did a yacht and powercraft design course, so that was very CAD orientated. But when I started at university, my wife said, "Are you not going to get a computer?" I said, "No, we do it on drawing boards, and they're not going to catch on anyway."
I remember those things.
Yeah. I thought calculations by abacus. But yeah, so I think within about 2 weeks of being at university, I had my computer with AutoCAD, and just about everything was CAD based. So that was my baptism of fire into, yes, this digital stuff is going to stay, and it's going to catch on, and it's going to grow arms and legs. From there, I joined Lloyd's Register, which wasn't really any sort of digital engagement there, but when I started getting involved at a senior level in the likes of Cape and Oceaneering, the value of having data at your fingertips became quite apparent. So one of the roles I was involved with at Cape, for example, was I was operations director on one of their big fabric maintenance contracts, and we saw the benefit of putting together a SharePoint site to manage the workflow through the organisation, from receiving an inquiry right through creating the quote, creating the work pack, right to signing off the work pack. So that was something that had been handled in a variety of spreadsheets in the past, a few fag packets, different ways of doing it in different teams. We standardized that and had a single approach, a single point of reference for those people at various points in the cycle to go in and pick up information, do their bit with it, and pass it on to the next people. So that worked quite well, and the benefit there was it streamlined the process. You could see where the processes were being held up, and you had evidence that these steps had been. So when you get to measuring KPIs, you can look back and say, yes, we did that, achieve that date, or no, offensible when you've got something set in stone to say, yes, I completed this on this date. So from there, I after the oil and gas downturn, I went to work for Oceaneering, not Oceaneering, for Babcock as head of asset integrity. And that was an interesting role in that my boss at the time, David Cannon, who now works for TK, he'd said, "What do you know about big data?" I said, "Well, I think there's a future in it, and I think that's the way we should take asset integrity." So I went down to what was Babcock Analytics Solutions down in a place called Fradley, and they showed me some stuff they did with the Type 23 frigates, they did with water utilities companies, and the stuff they could do by pulling disparate sets of data in, putting it together and analyze it so that the engineers could make informed decisions was quite astounding. And the visualization they attached to that was fantastic. So that really got me interested in the power of digital technology. So we built a whole model, or an asset integrity model, based on the use of digital technologies and data analytics to create information, or not create information, but make people more aware of the disparate sets of information that were out there, so they can make more informed decisions. And then from then on, I got involved with a project as a digital consultant, building a data model for a digital twin. And now I'm currently freelancing into Cyberhawk, who have got quite a nice little data agnostic tool for visualization and bringing, again, disparate sources of information together. And I think that really is the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, especially over the last few months, the word digitalisation has been such a buzzword because we're all being forced to use digital technologies in different ways, or not necessarily different, but just more often. And also the word digital transformation seems to be thrown around a lot. The buzzword is we've got to start doing digital transformation. And I don't think a lot of people tend to understand that digital transformation is actually just business transformation with the option of using digital. So, you've been involved in a lot of things in the past, you just said there. How do you see the trends moving forward in industry?
I think there's probably a misconception that you've got to plug yourself into the matrix and then you know jiu-jitsu, and then this, and then digital. It's about the digital transformation. Digital strategies, in my opinion, are not a standalone. It's not a standalone strategy. It's not a standalone concept. It is, the digital strategy is there to enable a business level strategy. So you need a business strategy. You need to know what your objectives are. You need the objective set, and you need to then look at how digital technologies can enable that strategy moving forward and help you achieve those objectives. And it may not be that everything, as I say, is plugged into the matrix. It may mean that you just have a better way of collection of that data, or it may mean that you have an automation system in a production facility. It may be that you just need to convert part of your business to a digital business. A lot of companies do it by just doing their transactional solutions, so the e-commerce element of it is streamlined, so their customer engagement and their billing and their revenue cycles are all within the digital arena. That's one of the areas that people go in first off.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so a lot of people love the new trends that are coming out, and I've seen that with digital twin, that could be great for our business, or let's put remote sensors on everything and do better predictive analysis, and then use artificial intelligence to try to predict when things are going to fail, and all these sorts of things, which are brilliant if they're used in the right way. But like you said, it's got to relate back to your business model, back to your strategy first, then decide whether you've even got the culture and the skills to be able to use that technology, and then try to fit what you need, don't you?
Yes, yeah, I think as I say, it's the business strategy that drives it all. And then if you don't have to be a technical expert on digital strategy or digital technologies to be able to put a digital transformation or partial digital transformation in place. You need to have the understanding of how you can apply that digital technology to an area of the business, and then let a subject matter expert actually show you the way it's going to be implemented, and help you out with that element of the project.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's about using the resources available to help deliver what you need. So just on that, I suppose you've been involved in some of those strategy developments from the front end development of it. If somebody was starting out and they were like, well, where do I even start? You know, how do I start trying to keep up with people, or even better, get ahead of other companies? What advice would you give that would help other people to get started in their own journey?
Don't try and be all things to all people. As I say, it all comes back to the business level strategy in the first instance. And then look at what your competitors are doing. You know, do a market analysis, see what your competitors are doing. Is there any standard off-the-shelf technologies that will allow you to plug in straight away to address a certain element of the business level strategy, and then look at where you can move from there. And I'd put a little model, if you like, on LinkedIn about a week ago now, in terms of there are internal drivers to your digital journey, if you like. There's the, do I want to catch up? Do I want to modernize? Do I want to simplify my processes? Do I want to automate something? Or do I just want the information that I've already got at my fingertips so I can make better decisions? And then you've got like the external drivers, such as the improvement in the service, the brand awareness, the improvement in the visibility of what you do to your client. You then link that into your business strategy, which will either be, I'm going to differentiate on cost, or I'm going to differentiate on quality, or something along those lines. And then you would then look at how you're going to focus that element of the strategy that the business strategy that you want to enhance. So examples of digitization or digitalization is, you know, if you've got a really good product and you've got very little market penetration, then it's a digital marketing strategy that you're looking at. You don't really want to look at the other stuff for a start. Let's just look at how you engage with your clients digitally, so use of social media and that sort of thing. So it may just be a small area that you want to improve, or it may be that you're looking at raising the awareness of your employees internally to the use of digital technologies, so that they can then understand and use systems as you bring them on board.
I think that's a really good point that you just mentioned there. If I can just stop you there, that getting the rest of your team on board as to how to use it as well, not just your digital team. You know, getting everybody else with those skills is really important, isn't it?
I think that's key with any sort of change program. Is not stick somebody in a box to develop a solution and then jump out the box and say this is the way we're going to do it.
The IT guy in his little office.
I did that once at Lloyd's Register years ago. I was put in charge of a change program, and I went into the room of very, very senior people and technical experts and said, right, this is what we need to do and this is how we're going to do it. And I walked out with the tail between my legs and thought, right, that's not the way I'm going to do it in future. You need to engage, you need to enlighten the workforce and your team as to the digital benefits of adopting a particular technology, train them in using it, make them aware of it, so that they can help you be part of they can be part of the solution and help you take that solution forward.
Yeah. And I mean, you look at things like the Gartner hype curve, which every year Gartner puts out a curve as to how mature the digital trends are, or the digital technologies are, and you see how long it actually takes for a new technology, like take artificial intelligence, for example. It takes years and years before it to even get to the point, yet people see it in the news or see what it can do and go, I've got to have that's going to work for us. And sometimes they're jumping in a little bit early. Do you find that with people, that they just want to get in and start using the technology?
I think there's two sorts of organizations, if you like. There's the ones that want to jump in there and you know, the early adopters that want to take that technology forward when it's high cost, and then you've got the people who want to wait and see what happens when that technology is adopted. But again, you know, you don't want to be jumping in, adopting a new technology if it's not going to benefit the business. You need to understand where it's going to benefit the business before you adopt that particular technology. We're at a point now and you know, sort of, the team at Oceaneering, when I was working there, we were looking at collecting a lot of information. A lot of information was being collected, and there was a lot of legacy data, but we couldn't do anything with that legacy data because of the way it was collected and the format it was in. Now the technology is there to digitize the PDFs that we put together at one point and extract the information, the tacit knowledge from that from those documents, and we can do stuff with those now. We can do analytics with it. At one point, it was just a PDF document that somebody had to read and make notes on, and then read the next document and see if they could spot trends. But now you can extract all that information and analyze it a lot more effectively.
Yeah, and I see a lot of people, they collect a lot of data and they think, oh, we're doing our bit on digital transformation because we're collecting all of the data that we need to use, but then they don't need it. And you mentioned, the big data at the start, you mentioned data analytics and things. So how do you get that information into a version where you're not just collecting terabytes of data every day, it's actually using it?
There's a couple of points on that. One, if you collect it, you've got to store it. So it's okay. People say we put it in the cloud. It's not a cloud. It's somebody else's computer. It's a server somewhere. It has to be stored somewhere. So you collect it. You've got to store it, or don't use it. So first of all, oil and gas, for example, it was a very small percentage of the data they used. It was 1% of the data they collected they used. So they are wasting 99% of the storage. I mean, that's gone up now, but a couple of years ago, it was literally 1% of the data. So you've got to store it somewhere. Storage is relatively cheap, but if you're not using 99% of it, why store it? So that's one of the key points. It's a storage of it. The other point I've forgotten because I rambled on a little bit too much, but I'll come back to it in a minute.
It's about how do you use it once you've got it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so when you use the data, are you using it to the best effect? What analytics are you going to apply? How often are you going to collect it? I mean, there was a company I worked for. They collected data at 500th of a second intervals, and they had a massive amount of data. But why collect data at 500th of a second intervals? If you halved that would be a massive amount of data saved, but you wouldn't have had any benefit from collecting that much data. If you collect it at 1 second intervals, for example, you've significantly reduced the amount of storage space you've had and the amount of data you have to process. You've still got to store it. You've still got to process it.
Yeah.
So you need to be objective about the way you collect the data and use it.
Yeah, and that's it. It's just not about just collect as much as we can because it can be used. You look at things like fiber optics that go down wells and that sort of thing, and they're tracking sound every 1 meter down a well, and they're sending just terabytes of data all day back and forth collecting it. Like you said, do you need to collect that much, or can you just spread it out? And it comes back to what you need it for, doesn't it? So
yeah, I mean, there's emergency systems where you need data instantly at your fingertips, or you need to know when something's not going right. But a lot of the data we collect, I think is not used. So why do we collect it?
Yeah. So if you had to give one piece of advice to a company who was just starting out on the journey, and they may have had a strategy before all of the last few months happened, what would you give them as to what would the best piece of advice be? How do you get started in your journey of digital strategy?
You've got to write the digital strategy. You've got to look at the business strategy. You've got to understand what you want to achieve. What you want to achieve, and then pick one objective in your business strategy. Say, right, I'm gonna use digital technology to improve that element of the business strategy. And then you've got to you go to the marketplace and have a look at what technologies are out there, and document what you want to achieve in your business strategy. So your business strategy's got a set of objectives. Your digital strategy should have an enabling objective to achieve that business level strategy. So document that. Say, right, we are going to achieve this we're going to achieve this objective by applying this particular digital technology to this objective.
Yeah.
And start on that journey. And it is a project. It's not just a push the button and you're plugged in. As we say, it's a project. You've got to make sure that you've got the right resources to do it. Either that or you've got to outsource the resources. But you've got to make sure that your objectives are smart within that digital transformation project.
Yeah, and you mentioned benchmarking as well was important, and also using the skills that you've got or developing the skills if you don't have them to match that as well.
Yes, not everybody's proficient in coding. Not everybody's, and you don't have to have coding. There are companies that sell off the shelf products. So understand what companies are out there that could add value to what you're trying to achieve. I think there's a misconception that if you're going to go down the digital route, it is all expensive. There is not. It's not all expensive. Some of it's relatively affordable. It's just understanding what you can get for the money.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, I mean, as a final comment, I would say, in your digital strategy, don't try and be all things to all people. It goes down the same route. The analogy here is the finite element analysis. If you don't put the right information in, you get a finite elephant. So make sure that you understand what it is you want to achieve, and don't try and be all things to all people.
Yeah, brilliant piece of advice. Well, thank you very much, Matt, for taking the time out to join us. As I said, I'll put some details in the links below, so if anyone wants to contact you with more questions or to have a look at your posts, then feel free. And thank you very much, everybody else, for joining in, and hope to see you for the next one. Bye for now.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Cheers.